Now back to the show. This is AM 650's The Law Show.
Talking family law on this episode of The Law Show with Rain Henderson and Kevin Heinrichs from Henderson Heinrichs LLP here in Vancouver, and just getting started back there in the center of the universe. We've been talking about divorce and all of the negotiations that go on between parties, and we've talked a little bit about child support and even less about child custody. And Rain, a few moments ago in conversation, you were talking about how in some of your experiences, you've seen individuals try to mitigate their financial obligations by increasing the amount of custody time. They're playing math games with children's lives.
Yes.
Talk to us about how this gets sorted out in either arbitration or at court. Does the child support and child custody, do they always get dealt with hand in glove?
For the most part, they do. But what the child custody will always be governed and determined by what's in the best interest of the child, not the economic interests of a parent.
Okay.
So factors...
Is that a change from, is that part of the new family law?
It's always been that way.
It's always been that way.
Okay.
Where the little bit more we're seeing is that the views of the children are coming more into play.
All right.
And a statutory recognition that we should be considering them. But what we have is definitely the amount of time that a child spends with a parent is going to determine what the support obligation is going to be.
Oh, okay.
So after you have that best interest of the child assessment and it says that mom and dad should have 50-50, then the support can be a number of different things. It can be, depending on incomes, it could be a strict set-off. So you basically pay support to each other, and whatever the difference is at the end of the day, that's the higher payer.
That's where the dust settles, right?
The higher payer tops up the lower income earner.
Okay.
60-40, that's sort of the gray area where we look more about what the costs are. Is one person have a little more expense associated with the child, and so should there be a little more support? But if you have the child less than 40% of the time, then you're going to be paying support to the person who has the child more than 60% of the time.
And that's black and white. That's not negotiable. We get people walking into our office, and I've had people come in and say, well, I have a lot of expenses for the children too, and I have the children 35% of the time, but I feed them dinners and I have expenses. The fact is that person has to pay maintenance,
right?
Because there is very, very little latitude there.
And maintenance isn't. A lot of people have misconstruction about what they can do with their maintenance. It does maintenance. She's just going to Vegas on my maintenance.
Right.
We get that. Can I police how she uses the money? Because she's just spending it on spas and nails.
Right.
And it's it's going to the parent receiving it, and it's supposed to cover the basic necessities.
Right.
And if the basic necessities may be coming out of what you perceive to be her money, and your money is going to her Vegas trips, you can't do anything about it.
Not only that, but if you think that the person who has the kids most of the time is not caring for the children, is not doing a good job paying for the children's needs,
right,
well, that's an issue to bring to the court, and you can say that person's not caring for the children.
Right.
Yeah.
Right? But you don't tie maintenance into the care of the children or the parenting. If you take away the maintenance for the children because you're not getting enough time with the children, well, you're hurting the kids because the other side's hurting the kids.
And it seems to be such a knee-jerk reaction. I just recently had one that went to trial, and one of the parents was being not allowed contact with his child, and he cut off the support.
Right.
And it's just that knee-jerk reaction, and it invariably backfires because not only are you losing your contact with your child, but you're hurting your child economically potentially because the support that's supposed to be paid is there.
Mm-hmm.
So there's ways to redress that bad event, but it's not cutting off the child support.
What about this scenario? As long as we're leaning towards busting a couple of myths, child support ends when the kid turns 19.
Oh, I wish.
Oh, really?
that would make things easy for us, actually. But
absolutely not. Child support is basically paid to the age of 19, but after the age of 19, if the child remains dependent economically on a parent by, for example, health issues, if there's a handicap, the child support will continue.
Or school.
Okay.
Or school.
School's the big one.
Post-secondary.
School's the hard one, right?
Yeah.
All right, try this scenario on for size. Okay, we broke up. I'm paying her maintenance. She just remarried a millionaire. He's got more money than the Bank of Canada. Why should I have to continue making marriage support or maintenance supports?
Well, there's different reasons why you pay support to a person. One reason is because during the marriage they were hurt financially, or they were
you're
brought
talking
down.
spousal support.
I
kind
am
of things.
talking
Yeah.
spousal support. Are you talking child support
Yeah, I'm
right
talking
now?
child support.
Child support belongs to the kids.
Yeah.
So
it has nothing to do.
even if the new husband owns the Bank of
Yeah.
Canada,
Yeah.
it doesn't matter.
doesn't
You
matter.
still have an obligation to your own children, period.
Okay.
Right? And it's your obligation to those kids, not your obligation to the spouse.
But
It's your obligation to the kids.
It seems, though, Rain, that lots of people look for excuses to cut themselves out of the script.
Absolutely. It's a big chunk of money that goes out every month for a long time.
It's less than taking care of kids on your own, though.
Yeah,
I can tell you that.
It's and so they try to find ways, and you cannot. One of the things people think of is that they can contract out of support. If you want to get a divorce in Canada, you have to have an order or an agreement in place for support for your children.
Oh, really?
The court will not grant your divorce without basically giving judicial approval to your financial arrangements for the support of your child.
Oh, really?
Period.
So that's Canadian law now?
Yeah.
Yes.
It's always been.
It's always been.
Well,
Really?
Yeah.
And if there are no children and it's just a divorce of two people, different ballgame.
Different ballgame.
Okay.
They assume adults can contract with one another.
This
but
is
they
the only
police the
hammer
children.
that the courts hold to make sure that the kids are okay financially. So they can hold that up and they can say, yeah, you can get a divorce, but have you dealt with your kids yet?
Mm-hmm.
Right. Okay. And talk to us. You mentioned one of the highly trained individual on your staff who is very involved in the collaborative process.
Mm-hmm.
And you mentioned something called a parenting coordinator.
Yes.
That's an officer of the court, is it not?
I think as lawyers, we're all officers of the court,
Right.
but a parenting coordinator can be appointed by an agreement or court order to basically micromanage the parenting decisions that the grown-ups can't do on their own at this point.
And I guess the it's such nasty, bitter stuff still for some of the grown-ups. They actually need adult supervision.
Unfortunately, that's where it's at. And
Yeah.
it can be, are we doing soccer or are we doing baseball? Who gets to go to baseball? Is it dance? Is it dance school or is it, academic pursuits? Like
It's an
it can be-
interesting thing. I mean, it's a new concept that's come in probably over the last,
Yeah.
several years, but it can be a lot cheaper to go to a parenting coordinator than it is to go to a court hearing every time that you've got a
Yeah.
problem with, whether the child is going to be going to this school or that
Sure.
school,
Yeah. Sure.
whether a child's going to be taking this sport or that sport.
And the parenting coordinator can do something without lawyers involved. So they talk to the two parents, they try to mediate the resolution, and if they can't mediate it, they can make the decision. They can do an arbitration effectively, make the decision for the parents and say, you're done.
We're out of time. I have one quick final question for you. At what age in British Columbia does the court get to ask a child, which parent would you prefer to live with?
Oh,
Never ask that question.
Well, no,
but
but
they'll
you
say,
know what
Yeah.
I mean.
They,
You
at
know-
age 12, the
12,
court
okay.
wants to hear an opinion. Now, whether the court gives that opinion a lot of weight, that's a different question,
Interesting
right?
stuff. Well, we'll pick this up in our
Absolutely.
next gathering. It's a pleasure to have both of you come down and join us on the Law Show, and I look forward to a return match. And
Sounds
I
good.
promise to get your names right the first time.
Great being
next
here,
time.
Sterling.
okay.
Thank you.
Our guests, Rain Henderson and Kevin Heinrichs from Henderson Heinrichs LLP in Vancouver. That's the Law Show for the last Sunday in March. Have a great day.